Welcome to another fun interview here on the Wild Wisdom Summit. And today I'm very excited to have a very special guest all the way from Kauai in Hawaii, a Scott Silverston. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You came highly recommended from our mutual friend, Ann Hessian. And Scott is a leader in the international shamanic teaching community, serving students and clients in dozens of countries around the world. Scott is a graduate of Duke University and former director of a major private trade finance company who quit the corporate world to dedicate his career to making a positive impact on the web of life. One of the main focal points of his teaching is to normalize shamanic consciousness as an ancient and effective method of achieving balance, both personally and collectively. I love that.
Thanks.
So we're going to have a fun conversation talking all about enhancing our awareness to the web of life with shamanic consciousness. So before we really dive into this, let's just, if you wouldn't mind, just defining what you mean by shamanic consciousness.
Sure. So so I'll start by saying there's what we call ordinary reality and non-ordinary reality. So ordinary reality is the reality that we are hopefully using when we're driving our car.
Right.
Okay. When we're paying our taxes, doing Excel spreadsheets, that kind of stuff, it is preferable to be in ordinary reality.
Yes.
And ordinary reality is our logical mind. And it's controlled by our logic mind, and our logic mind has a purpose. And so a lot of times in New Age, people will go too far to the extreme and go, oh, I just trust everything to spirit. But you see, we need our logic mind, because our logic mind is what, not only do we function in the grounded everyday life things that we need to do, like getting food, a place to sleep, shelter, family, those basic needs. Okay, so we use that for our basic needs, but also the logic mind, even if all those basic needs were cared for, like in a monastery setting or something like that, our logic mind is what we use to command ourselves to go into the spirit world, to know when it's time to say, I'm now going to engage with the spirit world to have these understandings. And so non-ordinary reality, and it's, I'll just prefer to call it spiritual reality, actually, is that which exists outside of our day-to-day logic mind. It's something we access in the spirit mind. And there are many different levels of spiritual reality. And right, so basically anything that's non-physical, you could describe as spiritual reality.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's all shamanic consciousness, okay? Because there are many states of spiritual reality that are not shamanic, right? So there's a dream, which is very close to shamanic consciousness, but there's also things like hallucinations. There's things like psychoses,
right?
Deeply induced trauma. Okay, that's not in the logic mind, but it's certainly not shamanic consciousness either.
Yeah.
So, right? Okay, and I'm sure, unfortunately, we all know or seen people who are basically broken. Their energy fields are broken in the upper chakras here, and oftentimes they're categorized as mental illness. Oftentimes they're houseless, they're on the streets because they cannot function. But you know what? They're engaging in the spiritual world every day.
Right.
But they're not doing it effectively.
Correct.
It's unfortunate. It's very sad. And what's very sad is that there isn't the teaching from a young age, so that people don't know how to interface with these things. Whereas in more traditional indigenous cultures, usually these things were talked about and children were raised with an understanding. So you didn't have these types of issues in those types of cultures. So shamanic consciousness is a narrower definition than any spirit consciousness or non-ordinary reality. It is something that we enter into through the spirit mind, but it's a state of consciousness in which we are able to voluntarily control our actions, but not the actions of others that we encounter, non-physical or physical beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't go into shamanic consciousness and go, I see a spirit, I'm going to make it do something.
Yeah.
That's not going to work out very well.
Right.
Okay, now you can ask. You can say, hey, I need help. Please help me.
Yes.
And then there's this part about making sure that what we connect with is benevolent and wise, right? Because not all spirits are benevolent and not all spirits are wise. And so you can go to a spirit and ask for help, but it might not be able to, even if it wants to. Or you can go to a trapped middle world spirit and ask for help, and it goes, I'm going to manipulate this person and control them. So that's shamanic consciousness, is the ability to enter, is a consciousness in which we enter into this state of, it's similar to a lucid dream state, where we're outside the boundaries of our physical ordinary reality, and we can control our actions, but we don't control the actions of others. And that's an important distinction, because when we venture into this world, there will be skeptics who are closed to these things who will say, well, how do you know you're not making it all up? Right. Well, when we control the actions of others is when it's a fantasy.
True.
Right. So if I'm sitting there and I'm going and I'm making it all happen, it's a fantasy. Well, how do I know I'm not making it up? Because when I ask for guidance about things, my power animals tell me stuff that isn't necessarily what I want to hear.
Right.
And if I was making it up,
that's not what you would say.
That's not what I would get. That's not what I'd create. I'd create other stuff. I'd create, oh yeah, it was all their fault.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Not taking the responsibility. I know exactly what you're talking about, because I tune in and I receive messages from different species of dolphins and whales. And I know that I'm not making it up when they're telling me something that I had no clue about, that makes sense when they say it, but it's like, I would have never come up with that in a million years on my own.
Right, exactly. And it's beautiful that you're connecting with the dolphins and whales, because when you're connecting with the spirit of an animal, like a dolphin or a whale or a land animal, you're working with benevolent spirits. You're connecting into the web of life, right? The animal spirits are part of the web of life. We're all part of the web of life. Right. And so you're connecting to the web of life, to the creation, through the lens of a dolphin, or through a spinner dolphin, or through a humpback whale, or whatever is there. And their consciousness, so you're accessing their consciousness, their collective consciousness, in a very, and it's safe, because you're not entering into like wandering middle, you're not talking to someone's dead uncle. Right. Okay. Right. And if they show up, you're like, get away. I'm talking to the whale. Just leave me.
I'm busy. I'm talking to
I'm talking to a whale. Okay. Right. Okay. So that's what I mean by normalizing shamanic consciousness. What I mean is that this should be normal. This should be normalized. This should be accepted. And we all know that, you don't go in and, usually we don't go into the bank and say, I was talking to a whale yesterday and they were telling me that, you just don't say that.
You do not say, don't say, they asked me to withdraw $10,000 and, right?
Right. You're going to, unless you really want to get a reaction, it's just not something that you do. Right. So it's not normalized. It's not something that in our modern society we're free to talk about. But when you start to circulate with people of other consciousness, oftentimes many indigenous people, they won't talk about it outside. But when you start to get to know them, and you say, well, of course, this is baseline, like everybody, this is just what you should know, and now go to your job. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like this is just stuff that we learned when we were in first grade. Now, what are you going to do for work? Right. Whereas in our modern society, Western modern society, oftentimes we've gone through a lot of things. And then all of a sudden as adults, we go, oh, my God, look at this stuff that's here. So when this becomes normalized, it allows for a different way in which we can walk in the world much more grounded. Right. Because when we feel that we're out there by communicating with whales and dolphins, for example, then all of a sudden we feel like we're on the fringe, and it's not as grounded as, well, of course I'm talking to the whales and dolphins, don't you? right?
Right. Right.
I have a friend who comes over and he helps me with the yard, and he was having a hard time. He talked to me last week and said, I'm having a hard time because, I don't feel like we should be doing with the leaves, putting them in this area. I think the land's telling me it should be over here, but he didn't say it in that way. I'm like, hey man, just listen to the land. I trust what the land's telling you.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
could see he just like got so relieved,
Oh, nice.
that I could relate to him on that level, because it's almost taboo to say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. And I actually have a really funny story that I'd love to
Yeah.
relate that pops into my head about. So you spent a little time in Hawaii, and so you
Yep.
understand like Hawaiian culture can be a little pushy sometimes, very
Mhm.
masculine. There's a very masculine macho energy, especially with surfers and men
Right.
in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
And so one day I was walking down, it was very early in the morning. I was walking down to one of the beaches after dropping my daughter at the school bus. It was 7 a.m. dawn patrol in the
Mhm.
in the winter time. And on this trail, it's overhung by bushes, and there's this bird that lives here. It's a thrush. It's called a shama thrush. And the shamas they almost look like robins. They have an orange chest and black and white markings, but they're skinnier than than robins. And they have a very long tail, but
Mhm.
they're incredible mimickers, and they love to sing, and they're very, very vocal. So you can whistle to a shama and it will go right back to you. And you can have a conversation with these birds. So here I
Fun.
am, I'm thinking I'm alone, I'm having this like nice conversation in whistle language with this bird, right? And here comes this dude walking down the trail. He's like, oh, what, are you talking to a bird? Like really confrontational. And I just stopped and I breathed for a second. I go, of course I'm talking to the bird, don't you listen to the Aina? Aina means the land in
Right.
Hawaiian, right? Don't you listen to the Aina? He goes, oh yeah, of course. And then he looked at me, he goes, oh, I had a girlfriend, and she used to say that when those birds was like a dead relative. And I'm like, no, man, it's a bird.
Right.
And then the most amazing thing happened,
Yeah.
because I was able to hold my ground in that it's normal to speak with a bird. It's
Mhm.
not out there, right? He shifted and he goes, oh, yeah, she was crazy, man. And then it started to pour out, like he just started to reach for healing and to
Oh.
like telling me his life story and his whole problems. And I'm just going like, oh man, I was just talking to the bird, like it was peaceful. Let's just keep walking. And we walk down the trail, and then at the trail splits at the bottom, and one way is the surf break, and the other way is the bluff where I was going. And he
Mhm.
looks at me, anytime you want to come surf on that left, you just tell him that I told you it's okay. If anyone give you a hassle, you come. He's like my best friend,
Oh,
and I'm just like,
sweet.
right. So this is what I mean about normalizing shamanic consciousness,
Right.
is
Right.
that this is normal, and we shouldn't feel like, oh, what? Right? That's not okay. Right. Of course it's okay. This, bro.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like, this. You should know this. Like don't make fun of it when you know that this is the truth. And I know anybody here who spends a lot of time on the land or in the water, it has to be tuned in, or you're going to get worked by one of those waves,
Oh,
right?
totally. Yes.
Right, you're going to get worked. And so it's like, this is the thing about tuning in and
Mhm.
being aware of, there's the signals that we pick up that are, I would say, conscious awareness signals. Like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, look, those birds are moving, and they're moving in a way that indicates there's a predator. Oh, look, there's a house cat, or there's a
Yes.
dog.
Yep.
Right? Okay, that's not necessarily shamanic consciousness, that's just nature observation and awareness. But
Mhm.
then there's this other level of awareness that
Mhm.
is non-conscious, where we just know. And this is where it bridges into what you're talking about when you go out
Mhm.
and you swim with dolphins, or you swim with
Right.
whales, and
Yep.
all of a sudden you just have a knowing.
Yes.
And what did that come from?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, beautiful. There's so much in everything that you've said so far. And I want to comment on one of the things you said in the beginning, and that is that you're not trying to control, right? There's so much we could talk all day just on that one aspect, because
Yeah.
that can also, we can use that, apply that to our human lives as well. It's like, okay, I want to connect with you, but we humans try to control all the time. But instead, let's just connect and just let develop what develops, and what can I learn from this person in my life, rather than trying to force them to conform with what I think they should be.
Absolutely. And it's a connection is listening and
Yes.
joining, right? So when I listen and I join, then
Yes.
I can feel and understand this person's being
Yeah.
that's next to me.
Yeah.
And once I can connect and understand and feel this person's being that's next to me, then I can choose, do I want to have, relation with this person or not? And if
Right.
so, in what way is it
Yes.
appropriate? What is right, what I'll call right relationship? What is right
Mm-hmm.
relationship, or what is right action with this person?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or animal or
Or
whatever.
animal, and it works across the board, right? And it's beautiful. I love that. And we've been talking mostly about animals, but I know you also connect with mountains and the ocean itself, and the rocks and things that people consider inanimate.
That's right.
um right, but I'd love for you to kind of expand on that and share a little bit about how do we
Sure.
open up and learn from a mountain or the ocean or the lake, whatever, a rock that just calls to us.
Well, it's exactly what you just said earlier, which is connecting and listening,
Yeah.
right? And so when I connect and I listen and I trust what I hear.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
Now there's a very specific way. So there's multiple ways to do that. Okay.
Mhm.
There's a specific way that I teach, which is through the use of a drum rhythm.
Yep.
And then we enter into shamanic state of consciousness, inducing that consciousness through the rhythmic trance.
Mhm.
And we will journey primarily in the lower or upper worlds, not so much in the middle world to start out,
Mhm.
because in the lower and upper worlds, we're only connecting with benevolent and wise beings. Okay, so that makes it
Mhm.
a little bit safer.
Yes.
So that's one way in which we can connect with the spirits of these animals or places or people, whatever it might be that we want to, rocks,
Mhm.
mountains, whatever it is, plants.
Yeah.
Okay. We can also just quietly sit in nature or in a
Mhm.
location and
Mhm.
open ourselves to receive the messages. Right.
Yes.
But what I find for myself personally, and a lot of my students say this as well, is that when we learn to do it in a, I don't like the word ritualized, but I'm going to say
Mhm.
ritualized anyway, because I don't have a better word at
Right.
the moment, in a ritualized way. And I don't mean like a big ritual, but like a systematic way in which I go, okay,
Mhm.
now I'm going to beat my drum and open this doorway. And now I'm going to end the journey and close the doorway. What
Mhm.
happens is we can go deeper,
Mhm.
we can go deeper faster, and the drum blocks out the distractions of both our wandering mind
Mhm.
and our self-doubt, as well as any external distractions, right? And even if we don't have a drum, we can listen to headset, like listen to the
Sure.
recording on headset. So it blocks that out, and we can focus more on what are these messages that I'm receiving, what are the prayers that I want to ask for, what guidance or
Mhm.
healing do I want to ask for in this moment. Okay, so when we have a systematic way of doing this,
Mhm.
um, and we go, okay, and I'm doing it regularly as a practice. I open the door and close the door once or twice a day. Then several things happen. One, we don't get people knocking on our door, okay, because
Mhm.
we're already getting those messages from the spirit world. So
Yes.
spirit doesn't have to find other ways to try to communicate with us.
Yeah, none of that cosmic 2x4 across the head.
Right, exactly. No cosmic 2x4 is needed
Yeah.
unless you don't listen.
Yeah.
But you're getting the messages. So you're not getting woken up in your dreams,
Mhm.
right? You're not getting these kind of strange occurrences that can be disruptive, because they become disruptive because they're trying to get your attention. So they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'll just make the car not start." when you're late for a meeting or whatever it is, that really annoying, disruptive stuff.
Yes.
So if we're previous to it, right, if we're previous to the situation, and we go and we get the information first, it's just, it's kind of like reading the newspaper, right? You get some people like to wake up in the morning and read the newspaper. I like to journey and read the spiritual newspaper.
Oh, I love that metaphor. That's perfect example, because it's like tuning in and going, okay, Spirit, what do you have for me today? What should I be aware of?
Exactly. What do I need today? What clearing do I need to do? What healing do I need to do? What information do I need? What guidance do I need? Okay. The other thing that happens, in addition to, so we are able to work more fully in the spirit world, we're also able to work more fully in the physical world, because we're not having that little tapping, annoying feeling that something's undone.
Yes.
And so it's all there, right? It's complete. And now I can, when I do have to do my taxes, it's not as painful.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily better at it, but it's not as painful. I'm more focused. It's like, okay, I'm just getting it done. Right? Because I'm not thinking, oh, I'm missing on these messages. Okay. And then also when we train ourselves to go and come back, go through that doorway, return, go to spirit world, go to logic world. We can then begin to switch much more quickly and easily, even in the moment. If I'm standing there and I see a dolphin or a bird or a flower or a rock, and I want to tune into it, it's very easy for me to tune in. It doesn't have to like jump through in a dramatic way. It's easy to go switch back and forth. Eventually we want to get to the point where we can walk and be in our logic mind and then switch almost instantaneously back and forth between the two. That's the ideal, right? So that takes practice over time, but we don't want to be half and half, right? We don't want to be half in one place and half in another place, right? Think about how my interview would be going right now. If I was half in the spirit world, I'd be like out there. It wouldn't, now
like Scott,
I wouldn't be able to have to, right, come back like, oh, sorry, I can't get my Zoom working. Oh, my computer messed up. Oh, right. This is the kind of thing. If people are struggling with that, that's what's happened. What's happened is you're too far in that world. Yeah. And you're not able to come back fully into the physical world. Yeah. And then, so when you're trying to do physical things, you're out there. And then, of course, when you're out there, you're distracted by the undone things in the physical world because there's stuff that you haven't finished because you've been out there. And so this is the crux of what we need to do as a first step. Yeah. Okay. And then we can go from that place where, oh, shamanic consciousness is a normal part of the day. Yes. Oh, it's a normal part of our being every moment of every day. But it doesn't mean it has to be all encompassing, all overwhelming, right? Just like doing math is a part of our day, but I don't do it 24/7. Yeah. Thankfully.
Anything, everything in balance. And I love that. So what would you say to somebody, because we've been talking and just you and I, we can both easily just tune in and tune out. But what about somebody who's listening to this, who's like, I've tried to tune in, I don't get anything, I'm struggling, I want to be at that level. What would you say to them?
Well, it's actually a lot easier than you think. Yeah. Especially with the drumming. And there's a very specific way in which I teach, which is very, very easy. And I would say 98, 99% of the people who have studied with me are able to journey within the first 2 days of trying. And it's just simple. Don't make it harder than it is. Yeah. Because what's happened, unfortunately, over centuries is that there's been a lot of misuse or misinformation put out there that this is something that is, you have to be born into the lineage to be a shaman. Yeah, in a traditional small society where you lived in a band of 50, 80 people in a clan group, right? And there was no Walmart, there was no Costco. Nope. If you wanted to eat, you had to hunt. If you wanted to stay dry, you had to build a good hut. Right. If you wanted water, you had to go get the water and you had to make, if you wanted it to be warm, you had to build a fire. If you wanted to cook your food, you had to build a fire. You had to get wood. So this is like living sustenance off the land, 100% primitive skills, right? Okay. Well, yeah. What do you think would happen if you had 70 shamans and no hunters?
Yeah, we wouldn't last very long.
You'd be hungry.
Yes.
Right? And who's going to look after the kids? And who's going to make the bows and arrows and the spears? And who's going to build the houses? Yeah, you can be as connected as you want to the spirit world, but at the end of the day, you still got to eat.
Yep.
Right? And there are limits to what's, as you said, everything in balance, everything in moderation. There's a limit to it. And do we really want to try to push the limit? I mean, yes, you can go on a vision quest and fast for an extended period of time. And you can even go without water like they do at Sundance, 4 days, 4 nights, no food, no water. Okay, but you can't do that for 40 nights.
Nope.
Okay, nope. And you certainly can't do it for 400. Right? So this is why they took the people who were adept. The people who showed aptitude at being a hunter, they became hunters. The people who showed aptitude at being shaman, they were picked at a young age to be trained by shamans because it was a matter of survival. Yep. But I can guarantee you that every single member of that clan group or tribe could talk to the spirit world. Yep. And that every single member of that clan group or tribe understood how to ask permission of the plants that they were using when they harvested, and they gave thanks to the spirits of the animals that they hunted, and they understood the world through shamanic consciousness. Yeah. Okay, so this is a birthright of every individual. Okay. The other reason why there's been misinformation out there is because, quite honestly, people can benefit by keeping other people disempowered. Okay, if there needs to be, if you need to have an intermediary to talk to Creator, well, that intermediary now has a lot of power over you. Right. And if that intermediary gives you a book that says this is what Creator says, and your ancestry is being replaced by the ancestry in this book. Now, where's the power go? Yeah, right? Exactly. That intermediary gets to make all the rules, and then you forget. And so there's a lot of subconscious programming and a lot of fear in there that, oh my God, am I committing a sin by doing this? Right? And so that can also be part of what's holding people back as well. Right? But really, it's everybody's birthright. Okay, it's just part of how we're hardwired, right? How many kids just see and know stuff intuitively? Little kids, 5-year-olds, they just have feelings about things. They have this intuitive awareness, but they learn at some point to shut that down, to turn that off for various reasons. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's what it is. So really, it's just relax. Know that it's easy to do. It's actually a lot easier than it's made out to do. It's not a special skill. What's actually more of a special skill is being able to balance it with our day-to-day life. And what's a special skill is knowing how to use this ability in a way that's grounded and helpful, rather than just getting out there. Yeah. Right. Just getting out there that's just getting there. But what do you see? And what questions do you ask? And that's a big part of what my training is to help people ask the questions and ask for the healing around the narratives, or what I call the agreements that we formed unconsciously as children. Right. So there's a lot of agreements we have that we're not aware of that inform our life and will hold us back from living our full potential. And so as people advance in their training with me, we uproot those agreements and replace them with agreements that help them be higher functioning, as well as explore ways of communicating with the web of life, with the spirit world, right? So, I'll keep going just a little bit. I just want to talk about one other thing here, which is so in shamanism, people will talk about power animals. And so usually, for yourself, I'm going to guess that dolphin and whale would be your power animals. You think? Right? Surprisingly, whale isn't, right? Surprisingly, okay. So, And that doesn't exclude you from talking to other animals.
Of course, yeah.
Right, of course, right? So I just caution people when they say, oh, well, my power animal is bear. So, but you can still learn from a deer. You can
Yes.
still learn from a cat, right? So we have that. It seems obvious, but people get, you know, we have this thing where we want to put everything in boxes. I'm a bear medicine person. I'm a dolphin medicine person. I'm a whatever, you know, eagle medicine. And it's like, yes, I call on eagle medicine. And yes, I call on bear medicine. And yes, I call on dolphin medicine. And yes, I call on the medicine of different plants.
Right.
And so it's really important to keep ourselves open to the entire web of life in that way, and learn that, you know, basically what our job is as human beings is to be custodians and caretakers of the web of life. And part of that is we have to listen first. Yeah.
I love everything that you've said, and thank you for all of that great wisdom. And I agree that, yeah, obviously whales and dolphins are my number one spiritual teachers. And there's times in my life when I had ravens come in, or, you know, different animals come in with different advice or different wisdom, and they can come in at the time that you need them the most. And as you say, it's all about listening and not trying to say, well, I want to hear from the whale or I want to hear from the wolf, when
Right.
Raven's like, hey, I'm here, I've got a message for you.
Right, exactly. Like, sorry, you're not a whale.
Yeah.
Come back in a whale body.
Yeah, right.
And like, you're in the mountains.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, this has been really beautiful. And I mean, you and I could talk all day, I think, about all of this. This is really fascinating. And one thing I wanted to share, though, is that you don't know this about me because we've just met, but that I was actually married into a tribe in Panama that still live out in the rainforest as they have for centuries. So the only way in is by dugout canoe, and there's no electricity, no Wi-Fi, no cell signal. And my ex-husband's grandfather was the shaman.
Wow, beautiful.
So a lot of what you were talking about when you were talking about the tribes, I'm like, yes, 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 because they survive now on tourism. Of course, they still survive by living off the land and in harmony with the land, but they take you on this little medicinal plant walk. And one of the plants, they always say, but you have to talk to it first. You have to ask it for permission to pull it, to use it, and you have to explain to it, I need you for this reason, and this is what's going on, and would you be willing to help me?
Of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, of course. And then when that becomes your kind of baseline, that communication then becomes instantaneous.
Right. Yeah.
So as we learn, and we're learning, and children are taught to ask, but then over time as they grow, it's like an instant communication. Sometimes I'll put my hand on it just for a second to feel.
Yes.
But a lot of times I don't need to. It's already communicating to me before I'm physically moving towards it.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that this is how their experience is.
Right, exactly. They're just breaking it down for the people who have forgotten how to tune in and listen.
Right, exactly. For the people who are coming to visit at this time and learning again. But this is how they would break it down for their children.
Exactly.
As well.
Yep, for sure.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's like 101.
Yes.
Right? Of course. Yeah, there's a story. I can't remember where I read it. I read it in a book many years ago, and I apologize to the author. I can't remember which book it was. It wasn't my book. It was somebody else's book. Okay. And in it, he talks about an experience in the Amazon where he was with the tribe, and the tribe and these researchers from like drug companies came, and they were looking for the cure for cancer.
Right.
Because they had heard that the shaman in this tribe could cure cancer. And they, what plant do you use? And he's like, this one. Because he could use anyone, because it wasn't in the plant. It was in the right. And then they would do it, and then they bring it back and they tested it. They couldn't find out how it worked because it didn't work, and they thought he was putting them on. And the thing was, well, you have to ask the spirit of the plant to help. Every 5-year-old knows that.
Exactly. Yeah, in my ex-husband's tribe, they wouldn't, it wasn't just the plant, they would do songs and ceremony and invite the spirits of the plants to work with what was going on physically in the person who was having troubles, who was needing that intervention.
That's right. And the plant was just carrying that
Yes.
spirit
Yeah.
into the person. It was like the carrier of the spirit to
Yeah.
take that into the person to help them. Yeah, you wouldn't just be like, here, eat this. You're
Yeah,
all
no,
better.
there's a
No,
whole process.
that's not gonna cut it if someone's seriously ill
Yeah,
and
exactly.
out of balance in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was, I was with him for 15 years, and such a blessing to be with that tribe. And I mean, obviously I'm still in touch with them as best I can be. When they come to town, they can send me a message.
Yeah, right. I guess you could paddle in.
Well, I have to go down to Panama, and then we get in the dugout canoe, yeah, and then go out to the jungle.
I am back.
I'm back, and they would love that. I would love that. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Well, you actually have a gift for everyone, don't you?
Yes, I do. So anybody who's interested in learning more about the way I teach shamanism can join our Fundamentals of Shamanism course. We have an online course. The next live online course is actually scheduled in August, from August 9th to 18th. I also have a self-paced course that you can take anytime. And my gift is a discount on the course, a $75 discount.
Nice.
And so if anybody would like to join us, you're more than welcome. And Anne is going to give you the links of how to find me.
Yeah, those links are right below this video. So just click that button and we'll have the code right with it. So you can just use that to get your $75 discount and really dive much deeper and to start examining this, start practicing the fundamentals of shamanism with Scott. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne.
So we also, I've been loving this conversation. And those of you who are VIP, we get more of Scott and in his bonus interview. And he's going to be talking all about stepping into our roles as caretakers and guardians of the web of life. You want to just tease us a little bit about what we're going to talk about there?
Well, I think what we're going to talk about is the necessity of being grounded within that. So that if I'm going to be a caretaker and a guardian of the web of life, I have to be grounded within that shamanic consciousness and within that awareness. I can't be a caretaker and a guardian and then get pushed over by the first person who's, trying to make fun of me because they're going surfing and had a bad night.
Yeah, right.
But look how that turned around for that person.
Yes.
Right. Look how that turned around for that person. And so when we think of caretakers and guardians, sometimes we think about it as a warrior type role, but not always. Right. Look, that person's awareness shifted in that moment of his conversation with me. Okay, and it was gentle. Yes. I didn't have to go out there and it's not always about, and this is important, I'm not belittling defending if someone's polluting and stopping that, but right. There are other ways in which we make a difference. So when we help to shift the consciousness of one person at a time, then that person might be the one that goes out there and go, I know that person who runs that company that's polluting, I'm going to tell them to stop. You never know who it is, right?
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that conversation. So if you're VIP, join us there. You already have the link. That video is below this one. But if you are not yet VIP, there's still time. You can join us. You can opt in for VIP. That button is also below this video. So go ahead and opt in. And remember that we're giving back 10% of all VIP income is going directly to support and help nature stay strong, healthy, and vibrant. So thank you so much, Scott, for being with us. And do you have any last words to share before we sign off?
I just say to everyone, really, take the time to connect in the natural world, that it's so important that you take the time every day, even if it's a tree in your yard or in a park, even if it's only 5 minutes that you have in your day, take your time to connect and to listen, and be open to what you hear. And a lot of this is about our finding that balance between our heart space, our intuitive space, and our groundedness in our lower dantian, right? When we keep all those three balanced, we're able to function a lot more gracefully in the world.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Anne. It's been my pleasure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and hope you can join us on our bonus interview. And we will see you on another fun interview at the Wild Wisdom Summit.